One thing that you should know about me is that I love Peanuts. Not the little nuts, but the characters by Charles M. Schultz. These characters have starred in many specials over the years, consisting of holidays and just the gang doing their thing. But in the modern age of streaming, does it still hold up? Yeah, it totally does. I still love it, no matter what. And since Halloween is today, that means it's time to review one of my favorite Halloween traditions. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. Oh yeah, and today's also my sister's birthday as well. I hope you have a great birthday, Cameron. Anyways, before we begin this review, I want to give a little history lesson regarding the man behind it all, Charles M. Schultz. Charles Monroe Schultz was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota on November 26, 1922, being the only child of Carl Schultz and Dana Halverson. His uncle had opted to call him Sparky after a horse named Sparkplug, originating from a comic strip, Barney Google, made by Billy DeBeck. On February 1943, Schultz's mother Dana died after a long-term cancer. Around the same time as his mother's death, Schultz was drafted into the U.S. Army during World War II as a squad leader on a 50 caliber machine gun team. They only saw combat at the end of the war and had spared a German soldier who willingly surrendered. Following his return to Minneapolis, Schultz began lettering for a Roman Catholic comic magazine named Timeless Topics, and a year later he took a job at Art Instruction Incorporated, where he reviewed and graded students' work. He had taken a correspondence course from the school before he was drafted, and worked at the school for several years as he developed his career as a comic creator. Now, the first comics that he made specifically were a weekly series of one-panel jokes called Little Folks, published from June 1947 to January 1950 in the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Schultz usually did 4 one-panel drawings per issue, and it was there that Schultz first used the name of his most iconic character, Charlie Brown. He only applied the name in like 4 gags to 3 different boys, as well as one buried in sand. Eventually, he also created the dog we all know and love, known as Snoopy. In May 1948, Schultz sold his first one-panel drawing to the Saturday Evening Post. 2 years later, a total of 17 untitled drawings by Schultz were published in said post, simultaneously in his work for the Pioneer Press. In the year 1950, Schultz presented Little Folks to the United Feature Syndicate, where they preferred the version in which he used 4 panels rather than 1. And thus Peanuts made its first appearance on October 2nd, 1950, in a total of 7 newspapers. After a slow start, Peanuts eventually became one of the most popular comic strips of all time, as well as one of the most influential. At its height, Peanuts was published daily in 2,600 papers in 75 counties, in 21 languages. The first collection of Peanuts strips was published in July of 1952 by Reiner and Company. The first animated TV special, A Charlie Brown Christmas, aired in December 1965 and won an Emmy Award. Numerous TV specials followed, the latest of it being Happiness is a Warm Blanket, Charlie Brown, in 2011. Up to his death, Schultz wrote and co-wrote the TV specials and carefully oversaw their production. Even after his death in the year 2000, Charles M. Schultz's influence lives on as one of the most iconic and influential comic creators of all time. And now, let the review begin. The special begins with Linus and Lucy Van Pelt going out to the pumpkin patch to pick out a pumpkin. I know I should say that 5 times fast, but I'm not going to. I really like the opening of this special because it shows what characters do when they're not contributing to the plot. Hey, look at that. Linus can't hold on to a giant pumpkin and it has him rolling out of control. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe that's the Great Pumpkin. Maybe this is just some sort of buddy film with Linus and the pumpkin trying to get along. Maybe this can be his best friend. Oh, this is a great way to start out a kid's special. Or maybe I'm just an idiot.
You didn't tell me you were gonna kill it. Oh.
We're then introduced to our favorite blockhead Charlie Brown raking leaves. What could go wrong?
Charge!
You know, Linus actually seems pretty chill for a guy who watched his sister commit pumpkincide in the last scene. It's also in this scene that we get to watch one of the most iconic Peanuts gags of all time. The football gag. Okay, I promise not to use that too often. We later watch as Linus writes a letter to the Great Pumpkin, an ancient deity that he thinks is a Halloween's version of Santa Claus. He thinks that the Great Pumpkin will fly through the air with a bag full of toys to give to all the children of the world, and possibly become an ad agent for pumpkin juice. But unfortunately, it seems that Linus is the only one who believes in the Great Pumpkin's existence, making him mocked by even his own sister, who threatens to punch him in the face. We all have those siblings, don't we? Meanwhile, Charlie Brown is ecstatic because he gets an invitation to a Halloween party. And of course, Lucy is there to congratulate him.
There were 2 lists, Charlie Brown. One to invite and one not to invite. You must have been put on the wrong list.
Did I say congratulate? I meant totally discourage. One thing you'll find that's missing when you watch this special is pacing. Many of the scenes seem to jump from one thing to another and have very little segue. But that's what makes this special stand out amongst the others. It actually has a sense of being its own thing instead of trying to be something else. And being someone who grew up watching this special as a kid, I can honestly say it holds a special place in my heart for doing just that. Anyways, I just noticed that I've been rambling on too much about the pacing. Let's get back to the review. We later find Charlie Brown and the others getting ready to go to the Halloween party at their friend Violet's house, with most of them appearing as ghosts, and Lucy appearing as a witch, and even Snoopy gets in on the costume making by going as, I'm not making this up, a World War I flying ace. Of course, they can't go any further without bullying Linus even further on his beliefs of the Great Pumpkin. However, the only one that appears to believe him is Charlie Brown's little sister Sally, who seems to have a crush on him, as in the later specials, she calls him her sweet baboo. But she doesn't seem to say that here, which kind of makes this feel like a pilot for any future Peanuts media. But of course, this is just like their second special, so what do I know? Meanwhile, as the kids go trick-or-treating, not only does Lucy's Halloween mask change expressions, but Charlie Brown also gets no candy, instead starts getting rocks. Don't worry about it, Charlie. You could get back at those people. Those rocks are good for throwing at people's windows. Meanwhile, Snoopy is getting a little bit too into character as he pretends he flies his doghouse into the air to shoot down the Red Baron. I got you, didn't I? Actually, Snoopy survives his quote-unquote crash and pretends that he's down behind enemy lines and ventures across the French countryside. As a kid, when I watched this, I just couldn't help but feel intimidated, you know? This music, coupled with this eerie feeling, honestly, it just kind of felt a bit depressing. There's no other way to describe it. Just listen and see for yourself. Yeah, scary. He later shows up at the Halloween party and partakes in bobbing for apples. Meanwhile, Sally is getting impatient because the Great Pumpkin still hasn't showed up, and Linus fails at convincing Sally that the Great Pumpkin will come until...
It's the Great Pumpkin! He's rising up out of the pumpkin patch!
It turns out to be Snoopy, however, and Sally proceeds to calmly explain her thoughts to her sweet Babu.
Halloween is over and I've missed it! You blockhead! You owe me restitution!
Or maybe she's just gonna yell her head off at him. That's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Boy, do I need a life. But Linus, however, still remains in the pumpkin patch all night, still waiting for the Great Pumpkin, forcing Lucy to bring him inside and put him to bed. But we still have 1 minute left in this special, so what else could there be to go over? I mean, we've gone over the whole plot. Linus waiting for the Great Pumpkin, the Halloween party, Snoopy as the flying ace. I mean, what else could there be? I'll tell you what.
Next year at this same time, I'll find a pumpkin patch that is real sincere.
Linus ranting about the Great Pumpkin, of course, because this special would not be complete without showing that Linus still hasn't learned his lesson about the Great Pumpkin as the credits roll.
I'll see the Great Pumpkin. Just you wait, Charlie Brown. The Great Pumpkin will appear, and I'll be waiting for...
And that was It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Now, does this special still hold up today in the 21st century? It does. It totally does. It totally stands out. While its animation may not be as great as some things we see today, the rest of it still makes for a pretty entertaining short story for Halloween. And of course, the same could be said for the rest of the Peanuts specials. They still air on TV sometimes during their respective holidays, and it can also appeal to young and old demographics as well. So I'm gonna give It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown a 4 out of 5. With only one flaw that I find, and that it doesn't focus too much on Linus. It's clear that Linus is supposed to be the main protagonist of this story, as it focuses on his quest to prove the existence of the Great Pumpkin. But no, the vast majority of the special focuses on Charlie Brown and the gang going trick-or-treating and going to the Halloween party and Snoopy flying around on his doghouse. But yes, that's what I'm going to rate It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Not perfect, but still very pleasurable to watch. So yep, this looks like a good place to stop the video. I hope you all have a happy Halloween, and Cameron, I hope you've had a great birthday. So thank you all for watching. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram as TheDinoIsMad, and I will see you on the next video. Have a happy Halloween.